Welcome back to Purpenthicity, your podcast focused on purpose identification and living within the essence of your authenticity. This week, we are joined by Megan Whittle, a University of Maryland graduate, superstar lacrosse player, and assistant coach for the Stanford's women lacrosse team. She's got an incredible journey, which has detailed the importance of vulnerability, being able to distill your purpose, and how you'd be able to want to use this to create an impact in the world. So get ready for a really raw account of the lessons learned. And if you enjoy our content, want to be attuned to the latest updates, please subscribe. Thanks for tuning in, and we'll see you on the other side.
Well, hello, everyone, podcast listeners. My name is Megan Whittle. I am from Maryland, born and raised. I went to University of Maryland and I played lacrosse there. So a lot of people might not know that much about lacrosse. It's a lesser known women's sport. We're hoping to be an Olympic sport one day, but it's a huge part of my identity and who I am. I had an amazing career, an amazing time at University of Maryland. We won a bunch of national championships, bunch of Big Ten championships, got a lot of cool t-shirts and hats, a lot of great experiences, a lot of fun. And now I'm in the coaching world. So I've entered NCAA coaching right after I graduated in 2018. I started out at Dartmouth for a year. So I was up in New England, shivering a little bit, but it was an amazing experience. And then a year later, my boss got the job at Stanford. And so we moved out across the country, and I'm 24 years old and I work at Stanford. So it's one of the best athletic departments in the country. Arguably, it's the greatest university in the country. There's palm trees everywhere. Our girls are incredible. They're incredible. And so I'm really happy. And obviously 2020 has taken a toll on everything, but especially in the collegiate athletic world, we've had a bit of a standstill. So this podcast is actually pretty timely because I think we're all still searching for our purpose. And especially every day, I can't exactly coach and our staff can't really, do our job. So we're trying to find other ways to impact the girls and have a purposeful lifestyle. So that is a very quick run of who I am and what I do, but I'm currently in California and it is 5 a.m. and I'm jazzed to be on this podcast.
Let's go. What an introduction. Welcome to the show, Megan. That's amazing. Anybody who says, oh yeah, I casually won a bunch of national championships, you just kind of set the table right there. Not a bunch, just a bunch. I don't know the exact number, but yeah. So you got a lot of Jag. Yeah. That's amazing. You set the stage, I think, nicely for a lot of the things that we're going to talk about. What kind of jumped out to me, well, I guess there was a few things, but 2020, because it's just been the theme of the whole year and much of what we've talked about. And then you also have the unique lens of also having to coach and teach and inspire women in this very abnormal, I guess, environment or moment in time. So could you just talk a little bit about what that's like? I mean, and even is there a fall and spring lacrosse seasons, or like maybe even just fill our listeners into like what that dynamic looks like?
Totally. So lacrosse is a spring sport. So typically our season, preseason's in January, and then we go from February to May. So your goal is to make it to Memorial Day weekend. That's when the national championship is. So obviously it is a very different year. And so even though we're a spring sport and that's when our season is, we typically have fall ball. So just like any other sport, you have a couple months of practice, few scrimmages, things like that to prepare for the season. And this year's looked very, very different. So in all honesty, we haven't seen our team since March. The kind of doomsday when we were about to play a game, we were about to play Colorado at home. They were on the flight ready to come up and the NCAA pulled everything out and we canceled our season, and Stanford sent everybody home right away. So,
and when you say you haven't seen your team, like literally like you haven't seen the girls physically since.
Yeah. So it's, we had a very scattered fall. So, little background, Stanford is in Santa Clara County, which is, I'm learning, the most restrictive county in the United States in terms of COVID regulations. So we've been shut down, sheltering in place since essentially March. So we had a brief moment in time where we could eat outside, and that was really exciting. But we're locked in, and there's California, there's millions of people that live here. The COVID cases, it's really high rates. So Stanford gave students the option this fall for the fall quarter hey, we're not going to house you, but if you can afford to live in Palo Alto, we'll allow you to use facilities and train on campus. And again, I don't know if you guys know much about where Stanford is, but it's in Silicon Valley and it's the most expensive place to live. So I'm in like a shoebox apartment right now.
I can relate.
Yeah, you're New York, right? So
Yeah,
it's
New York.
very, very similar where it's almost impossible to live out here. And so we had 15 girls who were able to go in on a house in, down the street in Palo Alto, or a couple of our grad students. So our fifth year seniors who were not planning on coming back, but the NCAA granted them another year of eligibility, they got on campus housing. So we had 15 girls back on campus for very limited contact lists, spread out masks, not at all lacrosse practice. So we saw a few of our girls, but everyone else has been virtual. It's all been over Zoom, and that's really, really freaking hard. We have 40 young women on our team, so keeping track of 40 girls, 40 student athletes, and 40 different lives, and everyone has a million things going on, and trying to keep up with them and make sure everyone's as healthy as possible, and just mentally and emotionally and physically. So we're trying to deal with that, and we're also going through a bit of, it's a shit show, I'll say it. It's a shit show right now of figuring out when our girls are coming back. They were supposed to come back in December. Santa Clara heightened their restrictions. Okay, now maybe it's January, and it's just been a lot of up and down emotional roller coaster of our kids hoping we're coming back. Yep, buy your tickets, we're coming. Oh, just kidding. Okay, we can't come back anymore. Now it's going to be January. So they've been incredibly resilient and flexible and keeping a positive attitude. But obviously the fatigue of when you're an athlete, especially I found, just my experience as a female athlete, your identity is your sport. And I'm still working to separate those two, because I'm a human being, but I feel like I'm a lacrosse player most of the time. And it's hard as an athlete. I'm only a couple years older than these girls. And I feel it too, of just when you're not with your team, when you're not practicing, who am I? What's my purpose? So we're actually kind of struggling with that a little bit right now, and managing it. I wouldn't say handling it perfectly, nobody is, but managing how to give everybody, purpose and something to look forward to, and just try to stay as positive as possible. So in hopes that we can compete in the spring.
Question.
Yep.
So that's really interesting. Would you, if you like zoomed out of 2020, do you look at this moment like a good thing for you, to like challenge you to like identify a purpose greater than just the sport that you play?
100%, Derek. Like, I've tried to stay, I'm a really positive, like, ray of sunshine person. Like I've been challenged this 2020 to continue my positive attitude, but I think everything happens for a reason. And I do think that for me personally, being put through everything in 2020, being an assistant coach, I'm learning a lot. For one day, I want to be a head coach, and I want to have my own program, and hopefully win championships at Stanford here, but on my own when I'm a head coach. I have a lot more to learn and a lot more years to get under my belt. I still haven't had like a full season yet of coaching. So I think I've not only preparing in my professional life for how to deal with crisis and how to manage people. And I've been watching my boss, Danielle Spencer, manage it with a lot of grace and a lot of integrity. And so taking positive things from that. But for my personal life, I've really had to sit with myself. And I don't know if you guys, growing up being an athlete or having something you're really passionate about, you're so busy, you never have time to actually think about anything except for, I got practice this weekend. Sorry, I can't go to this party or go do this. I have practice. I have a game. I'm competing for a national championship. Like, a lot of things are put on the back burner, including myself. And I think for me, it was a little bit of my mental health, a lot of my identity. And so I've tried to take this time in 2020 as a blessing to give myself time to think about who I am outside of lacrosse and separate those two. And that's been really hard as a post-grad collegiate player, where in lacrosse, I can't go to the NBA or the WNBA, like, I'm not making big bucks off of this. I'm doing it because I love it, and trying to separate, okay, if I'm not an athlete, who am I? And it's been really hard because I'm a coach, and that's my livelihood, and that's how I make money. So it's a huge part of my life, but who am I without lacrosse? Like, what other hobbies do I have? What do I do in my free time? But I 100% think you're right with that point. I've been given a blessing of a lot of time to think about what is my purpose, or alternatively, if sports were canceled tomorrow, just like they were taken away from us in March. What do I have? What do I offer to the world? What do I want to do? What's my big picture? Like, yeah, I'm a great
Probably
lacrosse
something
player.
early riser related, like
5
something
a.m.
4:35
Yeah.
and
You guys, I am not an early riser at all. Like, I'm really chipper right now, but my roommate was laughing. She's like, "You're doing this at 5 a.m.?" I was like, I can't say no. Like,
Austin
I'm in
does this to
too deep.
me all the time. It's the life that I live. He's
I'm
like,
in
"Oh,
too
you're
deep.
Central Time. He's Eastern Time." He's like, "We'll live on my world."
Derek, where are you? Where do you live?
I'm in Texas, so it's 7 a.m. for
Texas.
me. Typically, we start at 6.
Okay, where in Texas do you live?
Dallas.
Okay, so I just started dating a guy a couple months ago from Fort Worth, and he's very like Texas, and so I'm now learning a lot about
Yeah, Fort Worth is
culture.
it's all the DFW Metroplex. So Dallas,
Yes.
Fort Worth is all right here. It's so two very different worlds. Dallas is like the millennial vegans, and Fort Worth is like the
It's
old country
like
boys.
America, like
Yeah,
hell
for
yeah. I'm
real.
like, oh boy. And so he's from California, so he's very chill surfer dude, but I've gotten some of that Texas, and now when I meet people from Texas, I'm like, where are you from? Like, what is your background? But anyways, that's dope. Well, thank you for being up early too and listening to me.
Absolutely. And Austin, just thank you for being here. Not necessarily early, but thank you for being here.
Hey, look, that everyone's got a role in this, all right? And
Yeah.
there's a lesson for all of us to be waking up early. Some earlier than others. Megan,
Yeah.
you do it way more gracefully than Derek and I, so I'll say that to
100%.
start.
So I'll tell you, it's such a like 2020 has been a year, I think, well, for everyone. I don't even think I need to say that. But I've also looked at it like a blessing in disguise, kind of, which is, it's such a trash way to put it, because it's like a huge pandemic is like ravaging the globe, and I'm like, it's a blessing.
I know.
But I mean, it's honestly the same for me, Megan. It's interesting. I'm wondering, like, do we all have that like attachment to something that we just didn't realize we had until we were forced to sit with ourselves? Like, I've been home since March, from work,
Yeah.
and over the course of these last, it's almost the end of the year, like 9 months, I've had to come to terms with myself, like, what the hell do I do? Like, other than just grind my face off for sales and leadership. And it's made me come to terms with a lot of things. Like, I left my job in November. I got a job as a consultant. It's kind of the same feeling. It's like, but is this it? Is this what I do with my life? Is this why I'm here?
Yeah.
I mean, yesterday I turned down like a huge job because
Really?
like I was sitting with it and I was like, this just isn't, it just doesn't feel good for me right now.
Right.
And it was so empowering, but I don't know that, I was talking to my wife last night. I don't think I would have done that 9 months ago. If that landed on my lap, I've been like, let's go, baby. You want me to work for 70 hours a week? Let's go.
Right.
But zoom into today, and I've come to terms with so many things about myself where it's like, I value my family time now. Not that I didn't before, but like being in my house with my wife and my 2 kids, it's like I'm looking at time as if taking from them, and I'm like, that's not worth it. I don't want to do that.
Right.
It's crazy.
No, I totally agree. I also think, like, for you, it's been able to be, for you guys, it's like my career, my life, and for me being so closely out of college, I feel like my world never stopped. And since I started playing lacrosse when I was 5 years old, and I'm from Baltimore, Maryland, so like if I wasn't a good lacrosse player, it would have been a sin and like shame brought on the family. Like I had a stick in my hand since I was in the womb. Like I was born to do this, and that is my purpose, is to elevate the lacrosse world and to change that world. I know that, but I've never had time off. My body, and I think for me, I right after, I lost 4 games in 4 years and in college, and after I lost my final game of college, where I literally thought my world was ending, like I was about to jump off a bridge, like I was not mentally okay at all. I flew to Japan and was playing internationally with England, and right after that I was in Israel, and right after that I moved to Dartmouth, and right after that, like, my world hadn't stopped yet. And my advice that I was giving to our players, when we're FaceTiming them in March, just like, hi, are you good? Like, you're home, what's going on, is, you got to take some time to yourself. And I think that's different for everybody. For me, it was physically, Meg, like, stop moving, stop running. I've done a conditioning workout probably at least 2 times a week, every day since I was 8, like every week. I've always had to run. I've always had to lift. I've always had to do this. And for me, I also have been dealing with, and something I'm passionate about, and it'll come up, I'm sure, because I blabber about just like body positivity and like positive self-talk, and just dealing with once you graduate, all of a sudden I'm like, as a woman, I'm like, my body's literally changing. I'm not like a ball of muscle anymore, and it's weird. And so giving myself that time and loving myself enough and being like okay enough with myself to allow myself to rest. And I think a lot of people that I know in my little small circle of athletics are giving them that, you know, self-love time. Or for you guys, maybe it's realizing like, I got to spend more time with my boo, my significant other. I need to spend more time with my kids. I got to FaceTime my family more. I got to figure out what your priorities are. And for me, one of those is, okay, take care of your body. Your body did so much for you. In your 24 years, my body has literally taken me everywhere. And I've had to really reassess, you know, thanking it. I don't know. I've felt like I've actually had time to be kind to my body and relax. And that's the biggest thing I've taken away from 2020. And as you said, like, you feel like a shitty person saying it because the world's ending. And I've had a lot of, you know, friends and close people that have been affected by COVID, but my own personal growth, I think I'm improving a lot in the personal growth and like self-love category over this time. And so I'm very grateful for the just extra moments to myself, being able to go for a walk. Like if I'm not running for lacrosse, I'm not working out, and I'm going for a walk or doing yoga or other things to keep me mentally and physically healthy. So that's another thing, just that, like, Derek, when you were talking about like, okay, I'm going to turn down this job because I prioritize this. Like, that's how I am right now of, you know, like, I'm not doing anything until like I'm really taking care of my body today, or like, what am I eating and what am I doing? And that's my own, I am not married. I do not have kids. I am not there yet, but that's for me kind of like what I've had more time to focus
Hey,
on.
2020 is not over yet, Megan. Okay.
Yeah,
There's
we still
time.
got time.
There is
Wait
still
2
time.
weeks.
Get me a ring.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's so interesting. Like, obviously, you can tell like this is a palace of a body. I'm kidding. Like, yeah. I was
No,
not a
like
good-
I like eat McDonald's like twice a week. So like my Christmas
breaks my heart.
present from my family was a Five Guys gift card, and my mom's like, get your son. I'm like, oh my God, yes, thank you. But also like, I need to be better, but I'm kind to my body.
Yeah, unlike the two of you, I was not a collegiate athlete. So like for me, my physical body is like my mind. Like I've
Yeah.
burned this baby. I've burned it to the ground at times.
Yeah.
And like 2020 for me is like let's give back to like Derek's mental state. a little bit.
Self-care. It's
Yeah.
different forms. There's so many different forms. And my side of the world, it's all physical with girls taking care of their bodies. Okay, now that you look really good, but like you're an emotional wreck, your mental health isn't okay. And like you guys get it with just talking about like leadership and relationships and dealing with people, like as a coach. And like, Austin, I know you're a life coach, like being able to just read people, and even over Zoom, trying to read people of like, oh, Susie, like, are you okay? Wait, what's going on? Like, actually, how are you doing? And I feel like you got to take care of your physical, but the mental, I'm coaching Stanford kids, so they are type A. They're so beautiful and talented and smart and unbelievable, but they're very hard on themselves. And I am too, but in lacrosse, not like school, like go Terps, but like that was not the priority. And so dealing with that and being like a role model for really like boss, strong women that are going to be my CEO one day has been a challenge, but I'm learning a lot from that as well.
Yeah, it's really interesting just with, I think the pandemic probably put a little bit more emphasis on this. It's just like the importance of wellness. Like I even think like the past few years you've been seeing probably a positive trend of more eyes on that, but now at a point where people have had time to slow down and kind of look introspectively and be like, I have to take care of me. And it's like, if I'm not making sure that I am taking care of myself, it's harder for me to make sure I'm taking care of those around me or my other responsibilities. So as you were saying that, I was thinking about being in such, any time somebody is a coach, and I talk about this more in like the athletic sense, where you have people who are looking up to you for guidance and for leadership and as a role model, when you're talking about self-love and taking an emphasis on wellness, what's the process like in being able to help communicate to, the young women that, you're guiding and you're shaping? Because you even said it from your experiences, it's really hard when you're in it to look at anything else outside of the game.
Right.
And so as from somebody who's experienced that, I was curious to see, and like, I don't know, like what's your approach in trying to maybe break in with your girls in a different way?
Totally. That's a really great question. And that is a question again, I wouldn't have even known the answer to until I became a coach. Because when you're an athlete, you're in it. You got your blinders on, and my only job was to score goals and win national championships. That was my role. And that was my only job. And that's how I felt the lacrosse program. That's how I was just another cog in the machine. Like I felt that way. But something that my boss Danielle does really well, and when you're working for somebody, there's little nuggets that like you're going to take with you. Whatever job you have, you're like, oh, I love the way that my boss did this. So when I'm a boss, doing whatever, I'm going to take that. And we preach vulnerability. So we do tons of vulnerability exercises, and it's not only for strengthening team chemistry and bringing the team together, but that has proved to be a pillar during a pandemic. Like who would have known, like our cheesy like icebreaker challenges have actually brought a lot of people really close. And I'm going to be 100% honest with you. I did not know what the word vulnerability meant until I met Danielle at Dartmouth. Like we just played lacrosse, and like our coach like fed us steak if we won, and we got Under Armour gear if we won. Like that there was, and we partied at Bentley's. Like that was it. And
kind of sounds like the dream, but yeah.
It was. I'm not going to say, and I don't regret it. I don't regret it, but now I'm coaching, and I'm on the other side. I'm on the X's and O's side, as opposed to the like, Miss Perfect athlete. Like I'm the superstar, and kind of like when you grad, like you're at the bottom of the totem pole again, and you're just observing, and I'm like sponging it and listening and learning a lot, and bringing in different vulnerability exercises has allowed me to open up to the team. And I think that vulnerability and just that humanness that you have, along with me just being a young player, that a lot of my girls that I coach, they know, or I played against some of these kids. Like I'm not that old yet, but I'm like, oh my God, I played against you. And they're like, haha, like it's funny. But for me, having different instances where our head coach has provided like safe and comfortable spaces to have really vulnerable and open conversations has allowed me more confidence in myself. I'm a very confident player, and I'm working on being super confident off the field as well. That's still something I'm improving on, and it's definitely getting better. My voice is stronger, and I feel more comfortable sharing things, but just being vulnerable and like working a lot on emotional intelligence. Like for example, every practice before we start, we stand in a circle and, for 20 seconds, think about what's your word right now, like to describe your emotions. What's your word? Where are you at right now? And for me, I'm like happy, or like warm and fuzzy and great, like everything's great. But some of our girls are like, I'm freaking exhausted, or I'm burned out, or whatever's going on. It's just little checks like that for our girls to remind them that, hey, you're not just a lacrosse player. You're a human being. You're a badass student athlete at freaking Stanford. Are you good? Like let's check in. And so I think those constant check-ins that have kind of been structured in by the head coach, by Danielle, have been helpful, but it's also allowed me a lot of different platforms to share with the team, like my anxiety during college, and just still like I shake when I play sometimes because I'm so afraid of losing. Because I lost the first lacrosse game I ever lost was in college. I went undefeated in high school, undefeated in club, pressure, and now being able to coach and being like, you just got to play because you love it, and not because I'm trying to, get a bunch of rings. The rings are beautiful. I love the rings, but I love who I am because of the sport. And I love who I'm becoming and how I can share what I've learned. And I was thinking about, the first question you guys ask is, what is your purpose? And I was like, but I was thinking about like, I do think my purpose is to change the lacrosse world, but also to use the experiences and all of, the game experiences, all the goals and championships, like use that obviously, but just what I went through off the field, and be vulnerable and share that. So hopefully, if I'm not going to stop people from, feeling super anxious or dealing with self-doubt and perfectionism and just a lot of feelings that are very common in female athletes, but I might not stop it, but I might make younger girls aware of it so they know how to cope with it or deal with it, or how to reach out for help at a time where I didn't even know I didn't know what a sports psychologist was. We didn't have that at Maryland. And now I go to these high academic institutions where it's all sports psych, it's all nutrition, it's all lean on the people around you to be the best version of yourself. And I think just by being really vulnerable with my struggles and different things I've gone through, I've been able to open up to the team, and the girls are more likely to, share. And if you're a coach and that's what you want. You want to strengthen these relationships so they trust you during, 10 seconds left and it's overtime, but also when, hey, you have a big job interview, like let's get you ready for that. So very long-winded answer for that. Sorry for talking a lot, but that's what I'm thinking.
I think you emphasized a tremendous point, and that's vulnerability. I mean, it's something that Derek and I have talked about at great length on this show. And like, I'm in the same boat with you. I didn't know what vulnerability really meant until I was 31 years old.
Nobody taught us. I didn't know.
Exactly. And I think it's also kind of mirrors where we are in society to a bit, where we've talked about being in this Instagram era where everything looks pretty on the outside and you show the best version of yourself all the time. It's almost like it's not safe, or it feels unsafe for me to show, like my insecurities or areas where I may not be perfect. And I know like being able to cope and share with that with other people did two things. One, it allowed other people also to like let the defensive down and share it with me, which fostered actual connection and authenticity. We're not having surface level conversation where you're actually really be able to talk about the things that matter. And just, I think like the second point was you can actually speak and discuss the things that are important to you. Right. And that's been a tremendous shift in my life personally. And I think it's been allowed me to also be able to connect with people in ways that I couldn't even like imagine of doing so beforehand. And I mean, I think it's key even just to think that is being incorporated into like sports, like saying like what you're emotionally feeling before practice. Like that's the first time I've ever heard about that. And I think that's so like innovative. And to be quite honest, I think that could bleed in, probably be really useful in other sports. So I think that's a really tremendous point. Derek, I think I saw you jumping in there. Did you have something?
I'm ready to dive in, bro.
All right,
cannonball into this.
Let's go.
No, you said something that was really powerful. You said you might not be able to stop it, but you can make girls aware of it. And I think that's just super powerful, because one of the things that I've always like battled with how to like coach or lead was sometimes you just have to go through it. You can't take away experiences from people, because that's what ultimately built me into who I am. It built you into who you are. Austin, same for you. So it's not about making them stop and not break down at that loss or not feel anxiety about taking that first L, but it's like, hey, just so you know, this exists. Here's the anxiety that I felt, and here's how I dealt with it. And that's such a powerful coaching mechanism to teach kids that like, no, it's fine what you're going through, but here's how to go about it in a healthy way. So I think that's really powerful.
It's like normalizing it.
It is exactly what I was going to say is you're normalizing struggles. And the funniest thing about all of this is, speaking of Instagram era, I'm a early 20s girl. Like all I care about is how I look like on Instagram. Like and all I do is look at Instagram all the time. So I posted something a couple months ago, just like it was a mirror selfie of me, and like I'm really tiny, like I look really skinny, but I literally remember sitting in my apartment in the varsity at Maryland, looking at myself after practice and being like, I freaking hate myself. Like I do not like the way I look. I'm really unhappy with where I'm at. Like I was like, ooh, my abs kind of look nice, so I'll post it. But I really am like dying inside. Like I'm mentally not okay. And so I posted that on Instagram and just put like a couple paragraphs just about how I was
cute.
feeling.
Might delete later.
Kind of. I was like, it came up on my memories. So I was like, oh my God, you thought you looked horrible and you look actually like sick. Like you should not look like that. If you're a female athlete and you're competing and being a 4-year starter, you should be like a little bit more meat on the bones. So anyways, I posted this and you would not believe the amount of my own teammates that I haven't talked to in a while coming out and saying they struggled with the same stuff, or other high level lacrosse players. So again, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I'm very proud of what I've done in college. And I was a very well-respected player. I accomplished a lot of things people will never accomplish. I scored a bunch of goals. I had a lot of the, glory. I was the it girl for 4 years. I never came off the field. And I felt that pressure a lot. And so I think for me, not only to see or to hear experiences from my own teammates, we didn't even know we were struggling with the same exact thing. The body image, the self-doubt, the just freaking pressure to be perfect. I didn't lose a game until the end of my freshman year ever. Like I didn't know if I should cry or not. I didn't know what to do. I never lost. So seeing my own teammates, but then like the impact from other younger girls and parents and just people reaching out and being like, oh shit, thank you for being vulnerable. And thank you for, normalizing this. And my goal was like, hey, like it looked like everything was great for me, but just so you know, this is where my head was at. And I didn't want it to be like, look how great I am and look how great I looked too today. I look great. But like, I've come a long way mentally and emotionally from that. And I think too, just God, if I had had the courage to be vulnerable or the courage to speak up in college, how many people would have followed me? If I were just if I were the leader to do that, there would have been so many followers. And had I had the confidence in myself that I clearly played with, like if you see me play, I am a sassy, confident, get shit done kid. But I couldn't do that off the field. I was so insecure with myself. And so I thought I was so alone just with what I was struggling with. And then, lo and behold, 4 years later, oh my God, Whittle, I was feeling the same thing. Or like, I had no idea. I didn't know, like, we should have had a sports, we should have had this, we should like just the culture. And I don't want to speak ill of University of Maryland or anything, but just the culture was a lot of pressure. And I think people handle it in different ways. And I think normalizing, like, yeah, you're going to have you're going to have some tough times, and it's college. You're 18 to 21, like life happens. A lot of stuff happens. And so normalizing that. But for me, it was just really eye-opening of like, how you think it's your own little world many times, like, oh, it's just me living in my own world, and how many other people were struggling with similar things. And had I had the courage to be vulnerable, or had there been a culture of vulnerability or just bravery, or even just a safe space to be like, not okay, coach, not okay. Like, I really value that now. And whenever I'm a head coach or whatever, I'm, a captain or someone for a team, just preaching that and being a leader by example on the field, but off the field, I think I could have saved a lot of tears and a lot of sad, just mentally not okay. And so it's been normalizing it, but also I'm just hoping for the younger generation that even though you might to the outside world look really good or be playing really well, like everybody's going through something, and you have to be, courageous enough and brave enough to ask for help, because nobody can do anything alone. You have to rely on your circle of people. So,
dude, so first of all, when you're talking, I'm forgetting that you're only 24 years old. Like, just the way, like the anecdotes you're sharing, it's like, listen, back when I was in school,
back in 2018,
about 20 months ago.
Yeah.
Well, it's just bananas. Like, seriously, like all jokes aside, like, you're amazing. Austin could probably speak for the same thing. Like, you're just advanced. Like, you came off the court or the field with Lacrosse being like an excellent player, and it's like you didn't skip a beat into going and being excellent at the next phase of life, which is this, like, understanding your emotions and being vulnerable and knowing like what life is all about. It took me till I was like 29 to figure it. I'm 32 now. Like, I'm an old ass man, like, still kind of learning this stuff about myself. And I'm hearing you talk about like, yeah, dude, I posted this picture like 6 months ago on Instagram, and like, I needed to come to terms with who I am. And it's like, what? What? Dude,
I'm far from perfect, and there's a lot more that I have to go through, and a lot more that I'm still dealing with and struggling with. But and it's actually really, by you saying that, like, it makes me feel really like good and warm and fuzzy, because one of my biggest just insecurities or overall just like cringe, what I'm fearful of is whether or not I can translate my natural ability as an athlete into a coach. And when I chose this career path, I'm like, oh, I'm just the hot shot kid that was the #1 recruit, and I'm just going to join the NCAA coaching world and just make do and live in California. But like, I want to make an impact on young women's lives. Like, this is so much more to me than just being a hot shot kid that wants to, just stay in the coaching world because it's convenient and I don't have a great degree. Like, this is important to me. And so by you saying that, of just like, excellence is also a word that's one of my core values, like for myself, is just pursuing excellence. And so you saying that actually is way more meaningful than you think. Like, it's like in passing for you, but that means a lot to me, because I am being vulnerable with you guys. Like, I fear that I can't translate my natural ability as a player into a coaching style that will stick, because it's easy to be a great player, but it's really hard to transition into coaching. And so by you saying that it actually means a lot, because that's what I'm striving to do is be an excellent coach. And I'm not there yet, but I'm still learning a lot. So thank you for saying
from
that.
outside in, I can see the bricks being laid, right? And I know it sounds
Yeah,
like Danielle is like a great head coach to learn from.
she is.
But as someone that's been a coach and a leader, not in the sports world, but like the professional arena, I can tell you, like, beyond a doubt, like, you have everything that you should ever want in the sense of like being a great leader for a lacrosse team, because great leaders or well, bad leaders rather are so focused on the tactical aspects, like scoring goals, running.
X's and
And
O's, X's and
exactly.
O's.
And
Yeah.
like what I hear you talking about is like mental health and physical wellness and, you know, body image and making sure that they're feeling okay.
What's beyond the
And
game, right?
yeah,
It
man, like
is.
because
Yeah.
that is what makes people great players. Like you, if I can extend a little bit, it sounds like you got yourself through it. Like you weren't
Yeah.
surrounded by the resources to help you. So like you had to grind it out on your own.
Yeah.
And fortunately, I think you're the exception to the rule. Most likely, you're really quick to figure out what needed to be fixed and how to like come to terms with you. And now you're giving that to other players, where other people probably crumble and either come out of it super unhealthy and they're
Yeah.
dwelling on 20 years later they're still not the, you know, a professional lacrosse player playing collegiate lacrosse, but no, just super duper super duper super duper impressed
Super
with like
duper. I love
just where you're at.
it.
Like it's so phenomenal to hear your story. Like I'm like so happy that you joined us this morning.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
I
Yeah.
mean, you talk about using your platform to make it, I mean, you're doing it right now. You're not just talking about it, like you being out here and sharing and being vulnerable on this. I mean, you have no idea how that can touch and change other people's lives, especially as somebody who has been as prominent in their sport as you have been. So I think there's just like just a round of acknowledgement that needs to just to go out to Megan. Just like, yeah, it's like, yeah, there we go. There we
Silent
go. Like,
cheers.
yeah,
Thank
yeah,
you.
yeah.
Thank you.
You're amazing. You're doing it. And to your point, it's like, oh, this isn't just like something I'm taking because of the degree or what. Like, there's no doubt that you have a passion for this, and it sounds like, from my perspective, you're looking to, as it aligns to your purpose, to change this sport and the perception around it and the experience for women in it
Yeah.
for the better forever. And that's powerful. Yeah, I mean, that's kind of like what I'm left with here. I mean, I have so many questions in terms of like what I would love to see and like how you're going to go and continue to build on that. And I don't know if that's like if that's a part two in itself, or we go here, because I'm sure you have like this whole list.
No, Megan
Yeah.
is going to reserve us for 2025 when she gets head coach of the year.
Yeah.
After winning a national, Purpenthicity is going to be her first interview,
Yeah.
obviously.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh.
She's going to be like, listen, Kelly Ripa. Like, Kelly, I don't know why Kelly Ripa is my first person that comes to mind. I was like, talk show host, quick, who's there? So, Megan, a question for you as we're getting close to wrapping is this. So, I'm sure like when you were coming up, like you probably looked up to like other either collegiate athletes, like professional lacrosse players. Now that you've kind of bridged the gap and now you're in the coaching world, do you have someone that like you aspire to be or that you look up to?
That's a really good question. I think the first thing you should know about the lacrosse world is it's very small. The lacrosse world is a very small world, and I grew up in a neighborhood where everybody played lacrosse. So some of my like childhood neighbors are the best lacrosse players in the world. Like I grew up in the lacrosse world. So my networking alone by being a Terp, just being a Terp, puts you leaps and bounds above a lot of other people trying to enter the coaching world, which that starts a conversation of privilege and a lot that I can get to. But I look up to a lot of people. And one of my favorite player growing up, and one of the people that's always inspired me, she's the head coach at Loyola. Her name's Jen Adams, and she is still to this day the greatest lacrosse player I've ever seen. You know, when I'm a little tyke going to Johns Hopkins or going to University of Maryland to go like sit at the fence and watch lacrosse, being 8 years old, I watched Jen, and she. And being able to watch the Terps actually a lot. I was totally the little Terp fangirl. And then now I'm the reason girls were number 23, and I totally was that girl, like wearing the same, like that was me. And so
That's so cool.
Jen is really important to me too, because my senior year, I actually ended up breaking the all-time goal record at University of Maryland, and it was her record. And so
Wow.
I ended up graduating with 298 goals. I was almost at 300, but I ended up with 298, and I had to get to 269 to pass Jen. And that was just a really pivotal moment in my career, because senior year was a tough year for me in terms of my mental and emotional health. family shit hits the fan when it's just, that's everything happens at once. When it rains, it pours. Family stuff, a lot was going on, personal life. And I was able to control what I did on the lacrosse field. And I was really good at that. And I could control how many goals I scored, and I could do that. And I ended up breaking the record. And the fact that it was Jen's was one of those just roundabout, this is why I do what I do moments, despite all the other white noise on the outside or everything else I was feeling. The fact that it was her, and it was one of the greats that I looked up to, and someone that revolutionized the game of lacrosse. For someone like me, that I got to that point where I was almost as great as her. I will never be as great as her, but almost there, was important to me. And she wrote, like, she actually had a little like video tribute for me, and I was like sobbing when I saw it. Like, I total fangirl. And the funniest part now is that's what girls do when they meet me, or when they get to see me play, or when I sign a jersey or sign whatever for them, they have that reaction. So that's like a full circle moment for me. But she's also in the coaching world, and she's a Terp. So it's kind of that once a Terp, always a Terp. They always have your back. So if I were ever to, need anything, I have a really good, go Terps. I have a really good community of very strong women in the coaching world that are Maryland alums, that I still am continuing to further kind of build my clout as a coach with, if that makes sense. Like, I'm still like gaining that confidence to be in that club of really awesome, badass women that coach in the NCAA, especially the Division I level, because I'm pretty sure that's where I want to stay if I were to be a head coach. So there are quite a few Terp alums. And then the coolest thing about my boss, Danielle, is that she comes from a different dynasty. So the Maryland dynasty and the Northwestern dynasty. That's what you need to know in women's lacrosse. Is Northwestern won 8 in a row when I was growing up. My boss won 3 national championships, and the 4th one she lost by a couple goals. Like, she is the GOAT, and she's one of my favorite players growing up is Danielle Spencer, who's my boss. So I work for one of my, like, I can't make this shit up. Like, I work for one of my most, I went to all of her national championships games. Like, me and my dad were at Towson University watching her play, and she's like, oh my God, what? Like, you remember that? And I'm like, yeah, you scored 3 goals. Like, and so anyway, she's my boss, and she's in the Northwestern world. So I'm also finding different connections outside of my little, like, Terp bubble, where it's very like, I don't know, it's just kind of like, once you're in the club, you're in the club, and everyone else, it's just a very family oriented bubble. And so now I feel like I'm learning so much and expanding from people that I might not have come in contact with, like, we don't like the Wildcats, like, ugh, we're only Terps. And so now I'm, through the network I've created, just by being with Danielle and being with Nicole Flores, is my roommate on the other side of the wall, the other assistant coach.
Probably been like, be quiet.
Yeah.
I have like my sound machine. I like put a blanket under the door because I talk loudly too. And we sit this close to each other on Zooms all the time. She gets it. So anyways, I just feel like with the people I've met and the relationships I've been able to build, I have so many powerful, badass women I look up to in the coaching world. And I feel like I have enough clout as a player, but also just the relationships with people in my life to be like, hey, can you get me so-and-so? Like, I really like to talk to them about this. And right now in 2020, I haven't exactly felt like I needed to do that necessarily, but just by being in this really small world and having the privilege of being a player, people know my name, that's great. But just the reason I love coaching is because of the relationships with the players, with the administration, with, your coaching staff. And I think I love people. I'm good with people. I'm really like building and fostering those relationships. So I'm looking forward to just continuing sharing what I know about lacrosse, and, sharing all of my knowledge and experiences with the players, with other, other coaches around the NCAA, around the country, around the world. But also still being a sponge. I don't know everything. I might know a lot about X's and O's, but I do not know how to run a successful program. I do not know how to blah, blah, blah. Like, there's a bunch of things. So there's a lot of people that inspire me within the lacrosse world. And I feel lucky enough to be able and confident enough to, reach out and ask for help if I need it. And if you had asked me that a couple of years ago when I was in college, I would have been like, nope, I'm not going to talk to anybody. I'm not at the point where I feel like I could ask for help. So I'm proud of that, transition, but I'm inspired by a lot of badass women. I'm lucky enough to be surrounded by a lot too.
Let's go. And we are surrounded by a badass woman right now.
Oh my gosh, I know. I
So
mean, the word that just sticks out to me with everything you've said in your core value, just excellence. Like it's amazing, and almost kind of like stepping outside of that. Like you're this amazing human, which I think you've put it on loudspeaker for us to all see now. But people know you for being this dominant lacrosse player and this budding and amazing coach. But what would you say, like, would you want people to know about outside of the excellence exterior that they see, and what is it like actually like just like being with Megan, and what you want people to take from the moments that they may share with you?
That's such a good question, because again, I'm still struggling a bit with my identity outside of lacrosse, Meg, and just Whittle. Like, that is my name in the lacrosse world.
That's kind of why I poked at it a little bit.
just not triggering, but like so when I spend time with people, or I'm doing things that genuinely make me happy, I just want to be a super positive influence on people's lives. I want to be a great friend, a great teammate in life. And I think I've been able to work a lot on that, of just listening. I talk a lot, so I'm learning to listen. But something that's always stuck with me is just I want to be a ray of sunshine in people's lives. I want to be a very loyal friend, and a loyal someone they feel like my peeps can confide in. And even if I don't have a strong relationship with people, just kindness is a core value of mine that's really important. But I think my like passion and enthusiasm for life is the forefront. Like, that comes out right away. But I don't know. I love being me, and I'm authentically and genuinely myself, and I'm proud of who I am, and it's sometimes hard to like say that, because I don't know, I've always like equated my self-worth to if I score 4 to 5 goals on a lacrosse field. And the funniest thing about 2020 is, like, so many people don't care about lacrosse. So many people don't even know what lacrosse is, and it genuinely runs my life. So for me to be able to take a step back and just be the positive, like, authentic person I am without lacrosse has been a big stepping stone for me. And just being a really good role model as well is important. And I know it's like right now it's just on like what I post on social media or what I say, like, that is really important to me, though, is just being a positive role model for young women around the world, and sharing my experiences in hopes of touching or resonating with younger women, younger athletes, and just, pursuing excellence, but doing so in a healthy way. So I think overall, just being a very confident, badass woman, that's kind of my what I am preaching right now. But without lacrosse, you're so much more than an athlete. You're so much more than just another, I'm a D1, I'm this, or I'm a whatever sport you're playing. You're a badass human, and you offer a lot to the world. And I hope when I spend time with people, or when they meet me, or can hear me talk on a podcast, that they can that resonates, because that, I feel like, is my purpose.
Everything that you just said just oozes from you and from this conversation. So if there's one thing that I would say, Megan, you need to up it and do it more, because sharing, putting on Instagram, just because it's there, like being a great teammate in life, the ray of sunshine, the positivity, it's all been very present here today. So thank you so much for that.
Yeah, it was awesome having you.